So I actually did some Freudian research when I was a doctoral student. And he wrote a book called The Interpretation of Dreams. And he had all these archetypal things that he would apply to it. And there are actually some people in the psychology world, in the psychoanalytical world, whose entire practice is predicated on interpreting people's dreams. And apparently some people are pretty, really good at it. So I wouldn't claim any specialty there. But so from a neurobiological perspective, what the brain is doing when you're dreaming is it's trying to make sense of things that it encountered, recently, but generally in that day. And so many times we'll dream about things that happen, but they'll be bizarre because, the brain's trying to figure out what to do with it. And it's kind of playing with things. Kind of like, think of it like a 2-year-old playing with his food. It's kind of what your brain is doing with things during the day. Sometimes it's trying to make sense of things too. It's like there were things that it encountered during the day that were unevaluated. And so the brain is trying to incorporate that into your overall life experience by trying to make sense of it. And then there's other times when it just appears to be on LSD, it's just doing just bizarre stuff and you have no idea, well, where the heck did that come from? And then in it's not unusual to have repetitive dreams. There are dreams that everybody has across cultures. So almost all cultures have a falling or flying dream. Those are considered related, and those tend to be repetitive. Almost all cultures have a violent end to me dream, where you're in a car wreck or some other violent thing happens. Almost all of us have those. There are also very spiritual experiences that people will report having in dreams. They dreamed that they were in heaven or conversely in hell. And, those are also common. One really common one is being naked in public. There's one that's unique to the West, and that is going across the stage at graduation only to find out that you're missing a class. That's a really common one that people report. So, yeah, dreams, dreams are normative. So most people dream. Not everybody dreams in color. A lot of people dream in black and white. Some people put significance on dreaming in color, like they always dream in black and white. But tonight I dreamed in color. That's weird. So yeah, there are some people who don't remember their dreams. There's others. My spouse can go into great gory detail about her dreams. And I've had to listen sometime for a long time. She used to wake up sometimes after having a dream about me and hold me responsible for what happened in the dream and not talk to me for kind of saying, what did I do? Well, I had a dream last night. Wait a second. You're going to beat me up for your dream? How's that a thing? So yeah, dreams can be really powerful too. Dreams can also bring to the conscious things that have been suppressed at the paraliminal or subliminal level, so they can bring
like
to
emotions?
the conscious. Yeah, so sometimes there are emotions or circumstances that that occur in a dream that mirror or reflect an event that happened in the real world that we didn't think we were reacting very strongly to, but it turns out that we were. Dreams only happen in the lighter stages of sleep. So in deeper levels of sleep, you don't dream. So you don't dream in stage 3 or 4, but you can dream in 1 and 2. So during rapid eye movement generally. So that light stage. And it's why we can be awakened from dreams easily. So we can have a startling dream and it'll actually wake us up. And it's because we're in that lower stage. So fun little factoid. So melatonin helps us to modulate sleep. So melatonin is a neurohormone that does about 200 different things in the body, only really one related to sleep, but it modulates us going in and out of the different cycles of sleep. And generally we're in stage 4 very briefly. We don't stay there for very long, but we like to rack up as much stage 4 as we can get during the night, because that's when the most rest, the deep recovery, the deep memory consolidation happens in those deeper levels of sleep. And there are many people who never get to 4, because of poor sleep hygiene and stuff like that. But so melatonin modulates those. And so if we mess with melatonin through taking oral melatonin can actually mess with the modulation so that we don't actually get to those deeper levels of sleep. So a lot of people thinking I'm taking melatonin to help me sleep. If you're taking it by yourself, you're pretty much going to wreck your sleep eventually. And you may wreck it sooner than later. So I'm an anti-melatonin guy. But if you do take melatonin, make sure you're taking it with at least 2 or 3 other supplements to help sleep, like 5-HTP or GABA or L-theanine or glycine, something else. Don't just take it by itself.
You say that even with kids, it should not.
Especially with children.
You had a strong stance that children should absolutely not.
No, it is a drug. Melatonin is a drug. It's a hormone drug. You shouldn't be giving children hormones. So don't give them melatonin. I've lectured many psychiatrists on the child abuse that they're perpetrating by giving, 7, 8, 9, 10 milligrams of melatonin in children. It's terrible. It's terrible. There are better ways to get at that. And, just because a kid's not sleeping doesn't mean he's not making melatonin. Essential amino acids are things you have to eat. If they're essential, you have to eat them. So tryptophan is the essential amino acid that's in the monoamine chain that results in both serotonin and melatonin. So tryptophan gets converted into another substance called 5-hydroxytryptophan, 5-HTP. You can actually synthesize it in your body, or you can take it as a supplement. It's a precursor to 5-HT, which is serotonin. 5-HT and serotonin, same thing. But then serotonin plus the cofactor SAMe, a form of methionine, becomes melatonin. So whenever you give somebody melatonin, you're screwing up that chain. Leave it alone. So give the precursors, but don't give melatonin. So if you need to, get more tryptophan in the diet, or get some 5-HTP, or get some SAMe, but don't give melatonin, especially to children. Again, it's a hormone. It's not a neurotransmitter. So give stuff further up in the chain, but don't give that all the way at the bottom. I know people have been taking melatonin for years, and they quit taking it, and they can't sleep, but they take more of it, and they can't sleep either. So, they've wrecked that conversion chain by long-term use. And the brain goes, well, if you're going to take it, I don't need to make it anymore. It's a form of learned helplessness.
Well, awesome. That's cool.
It's probably not awesome. There's probably people going,
pretty ticked off about it.
Yeah, they're pretty ticked off. Or they're mad at me for bringing it up. But it's okay. You can't hit me with rotten fruit where I'm sitting. So
you're pretty safe in this environment right now. We're back again. We figured that we'd give sleep its own episode if you haven't sort of caught on and figured it out that we're talking about sleep. We had Dr. Wes Center on talking about brain health in a previous episode. And maybe, do you mind just kind of letting the audience know who you are if this is the first time they're seeing you?
Yeah. So I'm a psychophysiologist, a licensed professional counselor. I'm trained as a psychologist and in the neuro side of things. I have a brain health and wellness clinic. I also have a traditional brain health clinic that's not on the wellness side, but does clinical interventions, neurofeedback, biofeedback. We do TMS in our office. We're talking about medical grade TMS, not home use TMS device, but the 1 Tesla units. We do infrared, near infrared, transcranial, alternating current, direct current stimulation, random noise stimulation, pink noise, white noise, all that different stuff that we introduce to the brain. Working mainly with traumatic brain injury, ADHD, neurodegenerative disorders like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, other forms of dementia, and then garden variety, depression, anxiety. We do have a particular focus on combat veterans because I am one and I'm a retired Marine. So I like to work with my own guys. So we do a lot of pro bono work with the veteran community. And then we have my son runs another one of our companies doing the import and sales of neurofeedback, biofeedback hardware and software to make it more affordable for clinics. So we source low cost, affordable solutions for folks so they can get into the business. And so he runs that for me. And then and then the wellness side of things, we do hyperbaric. We got theta chamber. We got ion rain. We've got the AO scan and the full complement of things we can do with AO. And then we got a few things that are kind of on the experimental investigational side that we don't really talk about a lot. So, but yeah, and we got a busy clinic. I've been in clinical practice almost since I retired. I did a brief 5-year stint working in psychiatric hospitals while I was getting all my certifications and finishing up my education after I retired from the military. And then, I've been on this search for the perfect brain health intervention solution since. I haven't found it yet, but every time we add something, we get a little better at what we do. And we do a lot of teaching. We've taught over 300 clinicians all over North America, Asia, and Europe. And we've helped start probably 100 and something clinics now to teach them and train them and mentor them to do what we do. 2 big ones in Bucharest, one in Taipei, one in Suzhou, one in Shanghai, that I'm most proud of because we've been able to take, what we do here in North America and apply it to different cultures and see them get the same results, which is not only gratifying, but it's really infused a lot of life so that I think I'm good for another 10 years maybe to do this. It's just so much fun. So, yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much. Well, let's, I was talking to you about the movie Freaky Friday. I think there's been 3 or 4 maybe made. This one's the first one with Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan, if anyone's seen that. But they kept asking this lady who had written a book on senescence, why are we so tired? So now I want to ask you that question. I don't know if we got a great answer from the movie other than obsessing over, menial or trivial tasks and so many of them. But as it has to do with sleep, if I get 8 hours of sleep a day, why do I still feel tired? What could be the culprit there?
Yeah, so that's that wired but tired thing. So essentially the brain needs the opportunity to shift down from states of arousal to get to where it needs to be to rest. So first of all, if the brain doesn't think it's safe, then it ain't happening. And so your brain's primary responsibility is don't die, don't die, don't die. I've laughed about that your brain is singing all day long, don't die, don't die, don't die, don't die, don't die, don't die. And so the biggest obstacle to that is you. I mean, so your brain's trying to keep Big W from killing himself. And so so survival is that primary thing. Well, if you're getting close to bedtime and you've been filling your brain with, that whatever was on the news tonight, the latest gore and terror thing, and the world's coming to an end and we're all going to burn up and be a cinder, all that stuff. And you've hyped yourself up again. Well, you've wrecked your brain's natural tendency to downshift to allow you to go to sleep. And so people many times confuse sleep with quality sleep. They're not the same thing. You can be asleep, but not be getting restful sleep. Many of us have kids that, you put them to bed and you come to get them up the next morning and they're the same place they were when you read them their bedtime story and did their bedtime prayers with them. They're still in the same place. And then you got other kids who look like a tornado hit their bed and, their head is at the foot of the bed and their feet are all akimbo. And it's like, but the kid looks like, they were passed dead out all night. So, the one things kids do better than adults generally is wind down. They do generally a better job of downshifting to go to sleep. And so my deal is watch a baby going to sleep. So after they've done that first initial resist the sleep, then they finally calm down. So the first thing you notice about an infant when they're sleeping is breathing. You'll notice that their whole body moves as they're breathing. So they're breathing diaphragmatically. So us as adults, we tend to get in this bad habit of chest wall muscle breathing. So women do it because of restricted clothing. So they are actually wearing clothing that's binding. And that's why the first thing when my wife and all my daughters hit the house, their bra goes, sometimes when they're on the way home in the car, because it's constricting their breathing. And so in order for them to get a full breath in, they've got to get that, that barbaric trap off of them. And so then they can breathe more normally. And I know that sounds like a joke. It is not a joke. We've had many patients who would get into panic. And the first thing we tell them hey, just reach out there and let that go. And immediately they're able to take a full breath in. And so you need to be able to do the same thing when you're sleeping. You need to be able to take a full breath in. So we recommend that people do square breathing, which is take a deep breath in fill your lung volume up, usually for, 15, 20 seconds, hold it for 15 to 20 seconds, then take 15 to 20 seconds, 30 seconds to let it out, and then hold it again, and then do your next breath in. So some people call it SEAL breathing because the SEALs and other special forces use that as a breathing technique. But if you'll do that for 2 minutes before going to bed, you'll go to sleep much more quickly because you're telling your body that you're downshifting. But you got to get rid of those things that interfere with the shift down. The evening news will do it. What passes for, nighttime comedy now is mostly political outrage. That's not going to help you go to sleep. So, getting rid of the mind porn that comes through your cell phone, smart devices, or the television is essential. And then, getting rid of LED lights and fluorescent lights and going to incandescent, and getting rid of the blue light on your smart devices, and then get rid of your smart devices within about an hour of the time you want to go to bed. Don't use your smart device as an alarm clock. Go to Walmart or Target and buy a $10 alarm clock. Don't use your smart device for that. Matter of fact, the best thing to do with a smart device is to turn it off, all the way off, power it all the way down, and then plug it into, a receptacle or a power, recharge station in a common area of the house, not in the bedroom. And again, you should get rid of everything in your bedroom that hinders sleep or sex. If it doesn't involve sex and if it doesn't involve sleep, it doesn't belong in the bedroom. And so that includes pets, children, and things like that. Make the room as cold as you can stand it and can afford it, somewhere between 57 and 65 degrees. I think the research says that 65 degrees is optimal for most people. Some people, it needs to be a little lower. Get rid of all sources of light. Make it as absolutely dark as you can. If you got a ceiling fan on, you should wear a mask, because even with your eyes closed, when those blades are chopping the light up, you can see it. I mean, if you close your eyes and stick it up right now, moving forward, you can see it. So your brain's going to process that as motion. And so your visual cortex isn't going to go offline. That part of your brain's not going to go to sleep. So you've got to make sure that you do that. So normally we close our eyes to go to sleep. That tells your brain that the visual cortex, the back third of your brain, it isn't needed to work anymore. So it can start to go to sleep. Your frontal lobes are your thinker, decider, planner, your inhibitor. When you close your eyes and tell it, okay, I don't need to think anymore, I need to go to sleep. But a lot of people have chatty brain because they're thinking about too much. And chatty brain keeps both the frontal and occipital lobes going. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to figure out where to go now. Yeah.
Fun stuff.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to, let's shift into what's the brain doing when you're asleep. I feel like there's the stages of sleep, all the cycles. I hear that, and maybe this could start to get into like some of the misconceptions where your brain fills up with this fluid throughout the day. It gets all dirty and used and whatever. This is definitely the Jake explanation, not clinical or a lot of knowledge. And then you got to go to sleep to drain that fluid so you can kind of clean the brain. I may be like sort of misunderstanding that.
One of the fluids in the brain does only drain when you're laying down, not necessarily asleep, but laying down. And that's the glymphatic system. So the brain's lymphatic system is called the glymphatic system because it's isolated from the rest of the brain's lymph drainage system. So yes, that fluid that does have garbage in it can drain only when you're laying down. But your cerebral spinal fluid and your blood are being exchanged all day long. So the cerebral spinal fluid is what is inside that sac that protects the spinal cord and the brain. And so the brain is actually floating in that fluid, that cerebral spinal fluid. But CSF and blood both turn over throughout the day. But glymph does not drain unless
so even if you're laying down during the day, then the pathways open up and it can start to do that draining process.
Yeah, the reason why it doesn't drain is because the musculature of your neck that clamps down to prevent it from draining. It also prevents your blood from draining from your head. I mean, the carotids are pumping it up. The ascending and the descending ones are bringing it down, but gravity can't take hold and just have it all rush to your feet. So it tightens up on it to make it difficult to drain so that it stays up there. So yeah, but that mechanism also prevents the glymph from draining unless you're laying down.
Okay, so we've got some of that draining going on. And what else is your brain doing then when you're asleep?
It's busier when you're asleep than when you're awake. The metabolism increases. So my deal is that, hey, the reason why you can sleep with your head outside the covers, but you got to be buried under those 10 blankets when you got the thermostat set at 65 is because your head actually increases in temperature by 1 to 2 degrees because its metabolic activity increases when you're asleep. Because it's doing filing, repair work, it's doing stuff that it couldn't do because it was too busy with the don't die thing, right? So it's now can divert resources because you're out of the picture now. You're asleep. You're not conscious. So now it can work. And so that's what's happening. It's consolidating memories. It's taking the stuff that was in volatile memory in the hippocampus and it's farming it out to the cortex. The thalamus and the hippocampus and the sensory integration cortex are doing handshakes to figure out, what we learned today. Same thing for the frontal lobes. Things are getting moved into long-term storage in the temporal lobes. So about the only thing that's really offline is the occipital lobe, except for repair work.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then how does bad sleep or no sleep then start to affect those things? Do you not consolidate memory? Do you not receive the necessary repairs?
Correct.
So then you're saying that no sleep or bad sleep has serious health implications for
terrible health implications. And we're in the middle of a sleep epidemic. Arianna Huffington wrote a book about this sleep epidemic that we have in our country. It's a well-researched and well-written book about, our problems as a country with sleep, and the solutions that are in there are pretty good too. But her warnings about what's going to happen, we need to pay attention. We've got to get sleep under control. And so it was 20 years ago when I was in clinical practice, unheard of to see a kid with sleep issues or with type 2 diabetes. We never saw it. And now 60% of the kids in elementary school in certain parts of the country, to include the part I live in Texas, can be diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and obesity. That's nuts. And it's just happened like overnight, it seems. And of course, gradually it's been coming on with industrialized foods and sugary drinks and, the less access to high quality nutrient dense foods, a decrease in exercise, so there's reasons in retrospect why it's happening, but they're not good ones. But yeah, all the things you mentioned, your memory is going to get worse. You're going to be more irritable because of the accumulation of neurotoxin, brain toxins from metabolic activity that didn't get cleared out of your body because you're not sleeping well enough. The microglia can't come out and clean up beta amyloids. So poor sleep in the 30s and 40s can be predictive of Alzheimer's, in the 50s and 60s, early onset Alzheimer's. And other neurodegenerative disorders that come about. There's the brain plaque theory is really coming under a lot of scrutiny because some of the research that was done early on with beta amyloids turns out the research was faked. So they're having to retract some of it, but some of it is still valid. And so we do need to get the brain poo out. And the way to do that is to sleep better.
So you say the brain's job throughout the day, don't die, dummy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we got to do our best to, help the brain out.
Exactly.
Why thought came to my head, why when we're driving and we get a little drowsy, why do we fall asleep then?
Yeah, so it's usually through monotony. There's no novelty to driving. It's a rote kind of a thing. So there's a thing called road hypnosis. Some people call it road hypnagogia. And so a hypnagogic state is a state of reverie when we are awake, but we're not very alert. And there may be background memory scanning or daydreaming going on. Have you ever done a long road trip and not remembered long segments of it? Yeah. Well, that's hypnagogic reverie. And by the way, we can actually respond to changes like all the taillights in front of us turn red. We can react appropriately. Cortisol comes online, DHEA comes online, the stress hormones, and we can react appropriately.
But still kind of not.
Yeah, but not be totally
there
with it.
totally.
Yeah.
I've even my commute to and from work is sometimes like, whoa, I'll like park in my driveway or in my garage. I'll be like, how did I get here?
Exactly.
I know I was safe. I'm pretty sure, right? But
no, you weren't.
Holy moly, what happened?
Right. So that's your brain is doing the don't die functions. It's alert and it's responding appropriately to changes in road conditions and drivers and traffic and lights and all that stuff. You didn't run any lights, that hopefully
didn't hit anybody.
Yeah, didn't hit anybody. No drag marks in the driveway. Yeah. You're looking underneath to see if there's anything under there.
Goodness.
Yeah. So yeah, but it's called hypnagogia or hypnagogic reverie, but road hypnosis. And it's common. Everybody experiences it who's driven a long way. It's a typical thing. So, and that's just our brain, doing things while we're very disinterested in what we're doing.
And then that can slip into us like drowsing, like falling asleep.
At the extreme, yes.
Okay, at the extreme.
But that's more a fatigue thing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's more fatigue than a focus thing.
And why whenever I drive we're in Orem, Utah right now. So whenever I drive to Salt Lake, which is about a 45-minute drive, like I've got to start popping the sunflower seeds in. Is there any science to that?
Yeah, it's a hand to mouth thing.
Okay.
So it's a mechanistic thing, but it's also giving you something mechanically to do. I mean, you're focusing on it. You're moving the sunflower seed with your tongue so that you can bite it at just the right angle to get the seed out and then spit out yeah, exactly.
That's the only thing that'll work. I can't chew ice. And chew ice won't do nothing. Only chewing gum doesn't do anything for me. It's only the sunflower seed.
I'm going to use a very technical term. Are you ready for this?
It's right. We already had hypnagogia.
Hypnagogic reverie, yeah.
Reverie.
Yeah, this is a whatever floats your boat thing. Yeah, so if the sunflower seeds are what floats your boat, then do the sunflower seeds. So it really is whatever works for you. And that's what I meant when I was talking about supplements before, about melatonin stuff. Like everybody has a sleep cocktail that's going to work for them that may not work for anybody else, and it may not work for you every time. It may give you what you need this time, it's why I like more things in a sleep supplement than just melatonin. And I actually prefer the sleep supplements to have no melatonin in them. And if you just got to put something in there, do it at the microgram level, not the milligram level. And so like 10 mcgs, not 10 milligrams. Right. So, and the liquids are better than the solid pills or capsules, right, that have a fixed dose in them. The liquid ones you can measure better, so you can actually do less. Okay. So yeah, and then again, for no more than 5 consecutive days. Hey, here's the thing that'll bake your noodle. So all of the sleep meds that the FDA has approved for sleep, so Somnote, Ambien, Lunesta, they were brought to market with clinical trials of no more than 5 consecutive days of use and no more than 90 days of prescription use. I know people have been taking those things for years, and it's completely off label. It was never designed to do that. And, I had an attorney friend who shall remain nameless for the story I'm going to tell, down in Houston, who was arrested at 3:00 in the morning for power washing his house. And he was on Ambien. So he was essentially sleepwalking, and he wouldn't have been arrested if he hadn't have been naked.
Okay. I was waiting for the threshold. of what he got arrested for? Because I didn't think washing your car was
his
an
house.
arrestable.
He was power washing
his house. His house.
At 3 a.m. in his birthday
his
suit.
house. I think I tried to make that make sense, but
and I
house.
think all of us have, and I think all of us have heard stories about people, having an Ambien kind of out of body experience. But it causes, this kind of somnambulism.
Whoa.
So
you're bringing the words on
meaning
here.
sleep, ambulism, ambulate, to walk. That's somnambulism is sleepwalking.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
A heck of a way to say sleepwalking.
We got to make ourselves sound like we know something. So we, put these technical terms to everything. So,
okay.
Yeah. So it's a real thing. And people, Ambien is notorious for that. But there's tons of people who have been taking those things for much, 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 much longer than the FDA ever approved them to be used for. But because physicians are allowed to prescribe things off label, that includes not only prescribing things that they have a reasonably that will help somebody with a condition that the FDA didn't approve it for use for, as long as they have some rationale for doing that, they can do it. They can also go for longer and higher doses than were recommended when the FDA originally approved them for. So, when you're on long-term Ambien or anxiolytic, the use of anti-anxiety drugs like Librium, Valium, Xanax, Ativan, those things, those are off label if you're taking them for much longer than 6 months. Yeah.
Goodness.
Yep. Not a fan of all that stuff. There are times when it's appropriate. If it's going to keep you from killing yourself or somebody else, by all means. If you've gone for, 7 or 8 days without any sleep, by all means. Other than that, really should be cautious. And I always tell people, this is just good info for any medication. When a physician approaches you with a script, say, I need to understand, what is this going to do for me? What are the therapeutic benefits? And then what is this going to be doing to me? What are the side effects of this? How long am I going to be on this? And what's your plan for me coming off of it? And that's really 2 separate questions. So when are we going to be stopping this thing? And what are you going to do to help me come off of this responsibly in a way that doesn't provoke, some sort of withdrawal kind of things? And not all drugs have a withdrawal potential. Some don't have any at all, but some have quite a bit. And the physicians know this. And so if they're going to give you a prescription to take, they should also give you a prescription of when this is going to be over with. Mm-hmm. And then if you get the answer, well, you're just going to be on this indefinitely, then you need to take a time out to think about whether this is something that you really want to do, and maybe ask for a second opinion. Definitely talk it over with friends and loved ones, who may have had a similar experience with that medication. And that goes for everything, whether it's a psychiatric medication, which kind of falls more in my field, or whether it's, a statin drug. You need to ask, so yeah. And I think people get too passive. They get, a little bit of that deity complex that, you're talking to a godlike figure, and they put on their pants one leg at a time, just like you. So, and it should be a collaborative working relationship. And believe it or not, a lot of physicians actually appreciate that. And so don't assume that your doctor doesn't want to work with you. Go with write down your questions before you sit in the room with them. And, if it's a situation where you think you're going to come out of there with a prescription, go into it armed with the questions that you want to get answered, and make sure you don't leave the room till you get them answered.
Love that. Okay. Do you want to do another segment of trend or truth, or stump the chump? Stump the what?
Yeah,
stump
let's
the chump?
Stump the chump.
I do need to come up with better things to try to stump you with. These are more just like, hey, do you think this is true or false?
You're talking to a retired Marine, so you can call me a chump if you want to. I've been called worse.
Well, okay, let's do this. Sunlight first thing in the morning improves sleep.
Yes, sunlight throughout the day. So you want to get morning sun and late afternoon, evening sun, because your body makes vitamin D, the hormone, from sunlight. And so, you need on average a total of 30 to 40 minutes of sun exposure on your upper arms, shoulders, neck, and face. And morning sun is better than midday sun because of UV. So, and UV is harder on you the higher in altitude you are, and the closer you are to water or snow because of reflection.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Not your phone, though.
No.
You wouldn't say that a big bright light close to your face does the same thing.
So think of your phone as a handheld slot machine. And it's the reason why slot machines are addictive is for variable ratio level of reward and variable interval level of reward. So there's a variable, it's not a predictable interval. Not every time do you pull the handle do you get a reward. And the ratio of reward, the amount of pulls to the reward it provides varies. So varies from slot machine to slot machine. You could sit there and feed that thing all day long and get nothing, or you could feed it once and hit jackpot. Well, that's what causes people to doom scroll. You know, they keep scrolling until something hits their reward center, and that gives them a big dump of dopamine, and the next thing they know, they've been out for 2 hours. So we would recommend, I say we, like I got a mouse in my pocket, my colleagues and I would recommend that you not pick up your cell phone until after you've completed your morning routine, so your self-care routine, including eating, and you've gotten to where you're going. So you're going to go to school, go to work, whatever. Then only as it relates to the activity that you're at that place for. And then again, not until you get home. And then whenever you're greeting other members of the household, it needs to be put away so you can talk to them about their day. And of course, that means they need to put theirs away so they can talk to you about their day. And we recommend things like having an IT box or a cell phone box that everything goes into. No cell phones allowed at the dinner table, because it destroys eating as well as anything that could happen in terms of relationships at the dinner table. And then not during homework time for kiddos, and then not in the hour before bedtime. And we recommend that for your children, especially, that they get no more than an hour at most of unrestricted or free, cell phone usage. And at any time you ask for it, they need to hand it over so that you can see what they've been doing. So they can't lock their phones that you don't have an access code to. So yeah, it's awesome. Accountability.
And then let's talk about sleep debt. So I can make up for lost sleep. I can exercise 4 hours a day and then sleep for only 4. What's that trade-off look like? Yeah. I know there's a exercise sleep trade-off.
Well, let's talk about the principle of sleep debt to begin with.
Okay.
So our sleep requirement is based on a 7-day circadian cycle. So circa around diem, the day. Circadian are those rhythms that occur throughout the day. Ultradian are those that happen several times a day. So eating, peeing, pooping, those are ultradian rhythms. Sleeping is a circadian rhythm. So you have a 7-day circadian cycle for sleep. So your sleep burden is spread out across those 7 days. And so it essentially is the reset is your rest day, which is why it's important to have at least one rest day in your 7-day cycle, because that tells the body and the brain, okay, we can reestablish the sleep debt. So you need a minimum as an adult. We're not talking about children, adults. And adults, I'm defining as people who are 27 to 30 years old or older. I am not calling a college age student an adult, because neurologically, neurodevelopmentally, they're not. Now, they're not going to like to hear that, but that's just the truth of it. They're not finished with neurological development. They're still very much, in many instances, an adolescent until the mid-20s. Okay, so we're just talking about those folks, all right? Those folks that are over that, firmly into adulthood. Your weekly sleep burden is 49 hours. So you got to get 49 hours a week. You've got flexibility in how you get it. I do not recommend that you ever do 5 hours in a night, but there are maybe some reasons if you're a shift worker, maybe that's all you can get. But then that means you're going to have to get your sleep burden, caught up on other days. Now, most people need 8 hours of sleep a night, which of course is going to be 56 hours instead of 49, right? And so in order to do that, you're going to need to exercise at least, 40 minutes to an hour a day to be able to do with less sleep. But the trade-off ends at an hour. So if you did 4 hours of sleep, you're not going to get 4 hours reduced off your sleep total and sleep for 4 hours. That ain't how it works. You can exercise for 2 hours and you get an hour off. You can exercise for 4 hours and you get an hour off, or you can exercise for 40 minutes and get an hour off. So it's probably best to do the 40 minutes and not overdo it. There doesn't seem to be much of a difference between Pilates, groundwork, yoga, hot yoga, cardio, intense weight training. This is really interval training. Doesn't seem to be any difference. I know that as you age, cardio becomes less of a thing and core and weights are more important. Mm-hmm. Certainly by the time you're my age, so I'm at 65, cardio doesn't really need to be a big part of my exercise. I play hockey, so I get plenty of cardio, but that doesn't need to be, it needs to be more core work, ab work. And the reason is to make you more resilient to falls. Yeah, because the thing that kills you once you reach a certain age, even if you're fit, is, broken bones.
So mortality rate goes up.
Infinitely. Yeah. Well, everybody's got a shelf life, right? Nobody survives life, but the older you get, the more susceptible you are to, more fatal events. So, but that just makes sense, right? Yeah. So my grandmother's 100 and something years old. She's closer to some fatal event than she's ever been, but she's got 105 years behind her now, or whatever it is. Yeah. We don't even actually know.
Can you explain then what the exercise is doing for the body to allow one less hour of sleep?
So it goes back
What's
to something.
it
goes back to something we talked about earlier. The drainage and clean out system is mainly through the blood. So mainly through the blood that's coursing, pumping through our veins, because it's oxygenated as it gets to the brain. Then it carries back carbon dioxide, which is a toxin, to the lungs to be expired, so we can breathe it out. It's also to haul in garbage too. So your blood is the primary transport system for getting junk out and for getting oxygen and nutrients up. And so it's like a delivery vehicle that brings good stuff on the way up and it carries the garbage. So it's both a delivery truck and a garbage truck. So on the way up, it's delivering, and on the way back, it's garbage. And so anything that we can do to increase the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood, which is why red light therapy is so good, and improve the viscosity of the blood, which is hydration is so important. That's a good thing. Well, exercise does both those. It increases the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. It also increases cerebral blood flow and oxygenation through oxygen perfusion through the bloodstream. So it just makes blood more profuse. It perfuses through the cortex more with exercise. So yeah, there's a mechanical reason why it can decrease your burden, because you've made the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood during the waking day higher. So you're already moving out more junk because you're increasing cerebral blood flow and oxygenation. So there's less to move out when you're asleep, but only about an hour less.
Okay. Just about an hour, huh? How did that come to be like a kind of an established status quo?
Oh, those guys that we like to keep in the labs in dark rooms with slide rules and, vials and pencils and stuff. And yeah, those are the guys that figure that stuff out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, the researchers. Actually, if you really want to know, the number one source for sleep information about circadian rhythm comes from the United States Navy. And I'll let you guess what branch of the Navy they've done all the research with.
Well, I'm not sure. What branches of the Navy are available for discussion
Surface
here?
warfare,
Okay.
aviation, submarine warfare, anti-ship warfare.
For some reason, I want to guess submarine because they're always in the dark.
Exactly right. So
really?
They've actually studied the first studies of circadian rhythm go back to before World War II. And so the biggest body of knowledge on sleep deprivation, and the effects of circadian rhythm cues based on light, the United States Navy has. And the second biggest body of it comes out of Russia. Mm. Yeah, the Russians have done more psychophysiological research than anybody.
Oh, cool.
Kind of barbaric how they do it, but they've done more. Mm. Yeah, they don't have the same view of the rights of human subjects in clinical trials that we do.
Oh, yeah. Sad.
Yeah. The Germans did quite a bit of it themselves during World War II. So, yeah.
Okay, another trend or truth.
Yeah.
Alcohol is conducive and helpful to fall asleep.
So alcohol is disinhibitory. So it disinhibits the brain. So for a person who may be emotionally overwrought or can't slow down their thinking, that it will remove that temporarily while alcohol is active in the bloodstream. But you won't get restful sleep because your brain is having to detoxify from alcohol. So alcohol is an ester of sugar. So that's how we make alcohol. Is a yeast or a mold converts sugar into ethanol. And because ethanol is made from sugar, the brain lets it come through the blood-brain barrier scot-free. So it crosses very easily, as they say, like a hot knife through butter. It goes right straight through. Whereas other things get stopped and never get through. Alcohol goes straight through. And then it begins to affect the receptors in the brain in such a way that we become intoxicated. But ethanol is a toxin. And so the brain is going to put a priority on detoxifying that chemical. And so is the liver. So the liver can detoxify about an ounce of alcohol an hour. So if you drink more than an ounce in an hour, then it's going to park it in your bloodstream. And, that's where we start to get the blood alcohol levels, so your body can handle and metabolize an ounce of alcohol an hour, but you can certainly easily override that. And most people who drink do that. They override it. One standard drink of alcohol per day is considered problem level or dependence level drinking. Just one. And there's 1 ounce of alcohol in a shot of whiskey. There's 1 ounce alcohol in an 8-ounce glass of wine, and 1 ounce of alcohol in a 12-ounce beer. So that's considered a standard drink. More than 3 standard drinks for a woman or 5 standard drinks a week for a man is considered problematic drinking. So
doesn't seem like that much.
It isn't. It really isn't, but it is a problem. It's really hard on the liver. And that's why you see people with fatty liver, just from what most people consider social levels of drinking. So yeah, alcohol's generally no bueno.
And then you've talked a lot about too is having a certain amount of time before going to sleep on having your last meal. Yeah. What would you say is a good time?
About 3 hours.
And is it a meal, or can I have my meal at 8? And then can I have a handful of M&Ms at 9:30 and I'm okay. Yeah. So it's just a big hearty meal, or is it any food consumption at all?
No. It's just you don't want to put a lot. You shouldn't put a lot of food in the evening meal anyway, because your peristalsis, which is the movement of food through the pipes. I won't use a technical term for you. So that as it moves from the stomach through the rest of the plumbing, you got 27 feet of small intestine, 6 feet or more of colon. And so some people have a tortuous colon that's twice as long, but most people have about 6 feet of colon. So 27 and 6, that's what it's got to move through before, you've got to eliminate it through stool. So it slows down a lot at night. Well, when it slows down, more absorption can take place. So you really want to eat your smallest meal at night and your biggest meal for breakfast. Fuel up for the day and then burn it. Then, they eat like a king at breakfast, like a prince at lunch, and like a pauper at dinner. That's the old saw. So, yeah. But you can have a square of dark chocolate. It releases endorphins and kephalins. It can be dark chocolate, 70% cacao or higher, is also a natural anti-cancer drug. It's mildly stimulating. But your brain actually needs to be stimulated to go to sleep. It needs to be, think of a gear shifter. You got to push down on the clutch to put it into the next gear. And so that dark chocolate, but no more than an ounce. I mean, you don't want to do a chocolate bar, but you can do an ounce of it.
It's always an ounce with you. An ounce of alcohol, an ounce of chocolate.
It's not with me. It's just how the science breaks out, Yeah. I didn't invent this stuff.
No, it's all you. You're telling us all the rules.
I've never had an original thought in my life. That's just what the research says.
Okay. If I wake up in the night, something's wrong.
No.
Why?
Well, if the house is on fire, yeah. Oh. But yeah.
But nothing's wrong with you.
No.
Does it mess with your cycles?
No.
Does it mess with your sleep debt?
No. But what you do after you wake up can.
Okay.
So if you wake up in the middle of the night, so it depends why you woke up to begin with. If it's a bad dream, just wake up, realize you had a bad dream, close your eyes, and go back to sleep.
Okay. Very easy to say.
If you wake,
sometimes.
Well, yeah. It's like, what is it that Yoda said? There is no try, there is only do. Yeah, just do it. Yeah, don't make it a thing. Just do it.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
If you wake up thinking about things that are really troubling you, problem, and you think, and your brain is, chatty brain's trying to solve a problem, keep something beside your nightstand that you can write in, and write it down real quickly. Maybe use one of those book lights so that you're not waking your sleeping partner up with, bright light, because that's not right. Just because you wake up didn't mean you need to wake them up. There's a story that goes along with that, but I won't tell it here. I'll tell you later. You write it down and say, I'll deal with this tomorrow when it's appropriate, but don't deal with it then. If you wake up because your bladder's full, well, don't pee the bed, get up and go to the potty, and then go back to sleep. But don't go to the refrigerator for a snack. If you need to drink some water, drink room temperature water. Don't go to the fridge and get cold water. Get room temperature water, and then, go back to bed. If it's a kid, and you wake up and you find that one of your kiddos has gotten up and got in the bed with you, then get up, get them up, and either carry them to bed or have them walk to their own bed, but get them out of bed and get them in. Because co-sleeping with children is deleterious to sleep. That's another word for saying it's terrible.
So that's a kind of how, can you talk about how then bad sleep can affect a child's developing brain? And you say a child is anywhere from, an infant to that mid-20s range, right? What does it do to a developing brain?
So it inhibits the things that happen during sleep. So if you're not sleeping, the things that are supposed to happen during sleep aren't happening. So
it's not developing.
We've already talked about it. New neurons, new connections between neurons. It gets stifled. It doesn't get arrested, but it does get interfered with. The consolidation of memories. Again, a lot of what gets called ADHD, this kid can't remember anything. I just taught that. It's because they're sleep deprived. They get terrible, sleep. Fix the sleep. most of ADHD goes away, which means it never was ADHD. It means the kid was sleep deprived or poor quality sleep. And the other thing is find out why the kid's not sleeping. What are they doing that's wrecking with their sleep? I can remember one time hearing something coming from one of the kids' bedroom at night when they should have been asleep, and go in there, and said child had their nightlight on, and they were reading books at like 2 a.m. And as happy as I was to see my child reading at 2 a.m, not so happy. And so it's like, you have to explain to him, like, I'm so proud of you for your reading, but reading needs to happen. But Dad, this book is I just couldn't wait. I needed to finish it. And I said, well, if it'll help you, I will take it so that you can't have access to it. So you can blame me that you didn't finish the book, but we're turning out the light and going to bed there, partner. So yeah. And kids will do things to wreck their sleep too. Children should not be allowed to have smart devices in the room or TVs either. They just should not be. Again, sleeping and sex are the only thing supposed to happen in a bedroom. And for a kid, the only thing supposed to be happening is sleeping. So you need to create a sleep-friendly room. There are some homes that have multiple kiddos that have a kid's bedroom where all the kids go to sleep. They have their rooms for dressing and keeping their things in, but they have a sleep room. So it may have a brown noise or a green noise generator in it, completely dark, no ceiling fans, kept cool. And the kids can feel like they got the safety and security of numbers, but they're not bothering mom and dad,
What does the noise do? You said,
you
talked
so
about
brown noise, the brown noise and green noise are forms of carrier signals that actually encourage the brain to pace down. White noise, it masks other sounds. So like if you got noisy air conditioner, or if you've got, some bedrooms just happen to be on the same wall as the compressor condenser, when they kick on, you can hear them. And so a white noise generator will mask that sound. But really white noise isn't conducive to sleep, really. It's good for masking, but it isn't good for sleeping. But green noise, brown noise, not red noise, not blue noise. Those are stimulating. So yeah, there's a whole science behind that.
Okay, so what's the biggest sleep myth that you hear all the time?
Well, one of the common ones I hear in my office, we see some peak performers who are coming in to get their competitive edge, and some, military guys, athletes. We've worked with professional athletes before. My son has worked with a lot of people in the television and movie industry before. And so they're looking for a competitive edge. And then those guys are the ones most likely to say, I only need 5 hours of sleep a night. And it's like, no, BS on that. You do too. You just think you don't because you've conditioned yourself to not sleep. But you're going to shorten your career, and you're going to start having, bleed over effects into your work life because you're not going to be able to remember your lines, or you're going to have decreased, successful at bats, at the plate, or, we work with hockey players, you're going to get lit up on the blue line because you're not paying attention, so you need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Even high performance athletes need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Now, there are some people like Thomas Edison very rarely slept for more than 3 or 4 hours straight, but he napped all throughout the waking day. So he'd go take a 1 hour power nap and then come back at it. And so, but that's a rare bird that can be disciplined enough, to do that. Most of us just don't have the discipline for it. So, yeah. And if you said, what's the best gift that I can give myself in 2026? It's consistent sleep. We found that people who had as a goal during treatment to lose weight, those who got 7 to 8 hours sleep met their weight loss goals, and those who got less than 7 hours of sleep, gained weight. Let that one sink in.
Why is that? What does that have to do with weight gain or weight loss?
So your brain consumes about 20% of your body's available calorie burden. So it's 3 pounds, like I'm 165 pounds. So only 3 pounds of my 165 pounds is brain. So the other 162 pounds consumes the other, 70 to 80% of the glucose that I intake. But the brain, that 3 pounds, consumes a disproportionate amount of the energy.
It's greedy.
Yeah. It's a resource pig. It consumes 20% of the resting state oxygen as well. It consumes most of the neurotransmitters, although your gut uses more serotonin than your brain does. Mm. So if you think about it, it's a resource pig. It consumes a disproportionate, but it can go, well, I do more than all the other stuff. I do all the stuff I do, and I tell everything else to do what it does too. So give me a break. But when you're not getting sleep, all of that, remember I said your temperature goes up because your brain is metabolizing more when you're asleep than when you're awake? Well, you're taking away 3 hours of metabolic activity that would be increased because you're awake when you should be asleep. And we think that's the reason why people gain weight when they're only sleeping 5 hours. So for those of you out there who may have weight loss as a goal, or you have clients who have weight loss as a goal, tell them not to be the least bit apologetic for wanting to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, and to, remove any impediment to sleep and that impediment could be a thing or it could be a who, So, yeah.
Okay. If someone changes one thing about sleep tonight, right after, wherever they are, whenever they're listening to this episode, if it's during the day, or hey, if they're listening to this right now at 11:30 p.m., what do they ought to do?
Well, most of the people in the field of sleep hygiene, there's actually a field of psychology that's all they do is sleep hygiene. They would be clamoring for me to say at this moment, put away your smart devices an hour or more before bedtime. That's what they'd say. That's not what I'm going to say, because I already said that. So the thing I'm going to say is make sure that when you have decided that you're going to bed, you say, I'm going to go to bed at 10 tonight, that you do that, but that you do that in a way that doesn't treat sleep like a light switch. I'm not going to switch off at 10. I'm going to dial it down starting at 9. So that by 10 o'clock, I'm ready to go to sleep. But if you treat it like a switch, you can get in that bed at 10, but you ain't going to sleep at 10. Because your brain has still got to transition down to where it's safe for it to sleep, which means you're not thinking anymore, you're not moving anymore, you're not doing that any other thing, to get in the way of that. And for, adults, remember the bedroom's for 2 things. So if you're going to do that other thing, then sleep, make sure that you are giving you and your partner the adequate time before going to bed to set the stage. So that's the thing that's going to happen. And then, the men are going to go to sleep more quickly than the women are, but that's a neurochemical thing. But then you've created the environment where that's part of your sleep routine. And then of course, as somebody who very early in their career did a lot of sex therapy with clients, I would say that make sure that your playtime is also scheduled throughout the rest of the waking day so that it doesn't become associated with sleep, that it becomes an activity that can be enjoyed, at any time during the waking day, which is another reason to have a dedicated time and place for your kids to be, so that we can have mom and dad time, apart from children. And that becomes, we had kids spread out over the course of 10 years. And so, we had kids in the home for a long time. So it felt like forever, for a long time. And so we had to, be more mindful and planful, but you can make it happen. And you just don't want to make sure that that cognitively that you don't pair sex and sleep. They don't have to coincide. And, and that we don't need to do that to be able to sleep either. We don't want to.
Is that just conditioning the brain? Because then it just ties the both things together.
Becomes habitual. Yeah, okay. Right, exactly. And we don't want to habituate it that way. We want sleep to be about sleep, and we want sex to be about the relationship. Yeah.
All right, Wes. So tonight, then my goal.
Yeah.
If I'm going to bed at 11 or 12, right? Oh man, I need to get consistent.
11 or 12. Pick a time.
Okay. Whatever time that might be.
Yeah.
An hour ahead of time, my phone goes away.
Yep.
And I start to wind down.
Yeah.
So I write in a journal, read a book.
Do not
watch TV.
Talk to your wife. Just have a conversation with her about that.
All right. That's the goal tonight then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But no, I'm excited to try that. Hopefully some of you out there can try some of these things. There's lots of things that we can do to improve our sleep hygiene. But yeah, starting with that smartphone thing, because I'm guilty myself. When I get in that bed, I just lay down. And I mean, it's probably about this close to my face, and I'm watching videos and stuff until I
if you've ever walked through a casino in Vegas, just walk through and see those people at the slot machines. Just picture yourself sitting in that chair. Instead of grabbing a handle, you got your cell phone, because that's what you look like when you're on doom scroll on your phone. You look just like that. So let that picture resonate with you.
It's a little scary.
Yeah,
you trying to scare us?
I'm trying to scare you straight. Scared straight.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you all for watching or listening, and we'll see you next time.